Hey guys, Trevor Reed here. Sorry I lost my voice this weekend, so I sound a little scraggly. But for this scenario, I have recently purchased a new twin engine. I'm in charge of flying me and my family to see my mother-in-law from the New England area to the Midwest area. I'm not from there, so technically I don't exactly know all the airspace out there and what to expect. But I've done the research. I know the necessary documents I need, the minimum equipment list I've looked at, the necessary inspections, and all that checks out. I got my checkout done for that week, so uh, apparently I'm good in the airplane. I'm proficient and comfortable with all the avionics and stuff. So with that said, we'll be getting into exactly what I would do with safety policies and how I do this trip. Thanks. So to begin with, I just got this new twin engine that I am flying. I'm a recent multi-engine certificate holder, so not necessarily have all that much time, but I am proficient and competent in the aircraft to make this flight. So for the pre-flight, obviously, I would start with the exterior. It's the same as a single engine, except now that I have two. So I'm going through my primary flight controls, elevators, ailerons, rudder, making sure all that's good, making sure all my instrumentation on the inside of the cockpit is good and the outside of the cockpit is good as well. I'm making sure all necessary equipment I need, not for multi-engine flight, day VFR, and personally I do IFR as well. I am instrument rated, so I would probably be flying this instrument on an IFR flight plan. I would make sure all of that necessary equipment is operative, and if some of it is not, I would have to take that up and take that into consideration about maybe not necessarily going for this flight. Since there are two engines, the pre-flight will be a little bit different for me, but I would make sure I would be totally in depth for it. Wouldn't take any shortcuts on my pre-flight. So now I'd be looking into some safety policies and procedures. To begin with, I would make sure that I personally knew exactly what I was doing, my route of flight, and was comfortable with my route of flight. Once I have that, I would then brief my passengers, typical how to use the seat belts, pre-taxi talk, brief, pre-takeoff brief, emergency briefing. So I'm going through my emergency procedures with them, exactly what would happen. Maybe we lose one engine on takeoff, before V1, before rotation speed, maybe slightly in, say, on takeoff. After we've rotated, we lose an engine, exactly what I would do. Make sure we're all comfortable there, make sure my passengers are comfortable as well. After that, I would go into, again, my route of flight, making sure I'm always thinking one step ahead of the airplane. The New England area has some extremely busy airspace, so I will want to make sure I'm on top of my radio procedures. I'm not violating any airspace or anything like that. I'm not necessarily sure what the avionics system is in this aircraft, but if it's glass, I'm giving myself at least 2 miles separation between what my radar says on airspace and what air traffic control says, because their computers are definitely better than mine, and they are ultimately the ones in charge of this. So that's the big one. I wouldn't want to step through any airspace that I'm not cleared into or allowed into. With that said, I would make sure that if I need to shoot an approach or anything like that, I'm briefed and well aware of exactly what I would be doing en route and into my destination airport. So before I like to begin any flight, I always start with the PAVE checklist. I think it checks off every single thing that could possibly happen, go wrong, that I need to plan for in a flight. So P, the pilot. Personally, I got to make sure that I'm fit to make this flight. And so for my pilot, I use the I'm Safe checklist. So illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigue, and then I like to do eating and drinking. Some people use external pressures, but something like that, making sure I'm not sick, making sure that my stress levels are good enough to make this flight. I mean, this is my family. It could be pretty stressful. Getting them, you never know, the wife could be on me, who knows. Fatigue, let's say I've had a long week at work, something like that, that builds up over time. And then eating and drinking, don't want to make a flight where I haven't had any food to eat or I'm dehydrated. And then the really big one is alcohol. Make sure I'm not 8 hours bottle to throttle. if I did, but personally I wouldn't. That's way too close for me. Even being hungover can definitely influence your performance on a flight. After the pilot, we move into the airplane. So again, I've already checked this out, making sure that our inspections for the aircraft and the necessary equipment's required. So for that, I use Aviate. So the annual, you need that. The VORs, if I'm instrument, I will need a VOR. I like to have that even if I'm on a VFR flight plan or just flying VFR. The 100 hour if it's for hire or for teaching, so that would be needed. The altimeter, checking that for every 24 months. Transponder, making sure that is good as well every 24 months. And then the ELT, making sure that is in the legal limit. After the airplane, I go to the environment. So New England, busy airspace, that adds up into it. Buildings, taller buildings, you need to be cognizant of that. And then your destination, Midwest, known for thunderstorms that can just randomly pop up at any time. So I'd be very cognizant of the weather out of my takeoff airport and into my destination. So that would be something that I'd be cognizant of. Would I know, am I going to have to shoot an instrument approach? Is it going to be low ceilings, low visibility, things like that? And then finally, I get into external pressures. Again, this I think is one of the biggest ones in general aviation and even aviation in general. I'm flying my family. We really want to see my mother-in-law, right? It's a date. We're trying to get there. You don't want to be late. You don't want to push your minimums here, your personal minimums, especially as a new multi-engine pilot. Those personal minimums are big. So that really is the biggest. I think the PAVE checklist really checks out exactly everything that you need to safely make this flight and show good aeronautical decision making.